Hello and welcome back to the Survival Horror Guide, a series where we play and then review survival horror games. We rate them on their fear factor, and then we give them an overall score. Finally, we send it over to the series' totally arbitrary rating system to see how it stacks up against the rest of the survival horror competition. Today for the show, survival horror in your goddamn pocket. Today for the show, we are taking a look at Dementium The Ward for the Nintendo DS. Dementium The Ward was released in 2007, developed by Renegade Kid. Funny thing is, this game was pitched to Konami to be a Silent Hill game. Silent Hill DS! Can you freaking imagine? But Konami didn't bite. And so the devs proceeded to make it an original IP. And you know, I gotta say, I think Konami made the right call here. Look, this game has a lot of things going for it. Dare I say it, it's one of the best survival horror games on the Nintendo DS. Granted, the number of horror games on the DS you can probably count on one hand, so I guess it's not really saying that much. Let me start with the good, because there are definitely good things to say about it. Dementium The Ward looks really, really good for a DS game. We're talking about 2004 handheld gaming hardware running a fully 3D first-person horror game at a smooth, crisp-ass 60 frames per second. I don't know what kind of witchcraft was used to optimize this thing, because by all accounts, this should not work, but it does. I need to also admit I do have a fondness for these old school, simple 3D graphic style games. To me, this looks awesome. Another thing that surprised me with this game are the controls. Again, this is a first-person game on a console that only has one single D-pad for movement. So in place of an analog stick for camera controls, you actually use the touchscreen. And when paired with the Nintendo DS thumbpad, it actually mimics dual analog control very, very well, better than you would think. It didn't take long to adjust to, and before long, it was like second nature, like using a regular controller. It's awesome. Honestly, it worked so well that I'm surprised there weren't more first-person games on the console. So, Dementium The Ward for the Nintendo DS, it has great visuals, excellent controls. Now, how about the game itself? Well, I'm afraid this is where things start to go downhill. The game has you playing as a man named William who's just woken up in a dank-ass, dilapidated hospital. The entire game actually takes place in this very hospital, hence the game's name. And it's separated into 16 different chapters, most of which are tied to an area inside the hospital, the infant ward, the rooftop, security, courtyard, etc. The bulk of your time is spent wandering the halls of the hospital, attempting to reach the next area, while either killing or avoiding the monsters that roam the halls along the way. It's honestly pretty basic. The guns don't feel terrible though. You're given a handful of weapons like the handgun, shotgun, machine gun, magnum. You can get a buzzsaw that I totally missed during my playthrough. I do wish there was more variety in the enemies though. The basic zombies and these fetus leech type enemies are freaking everywhere, and they stop being scary real quick. They become nothing more than an obstacle. Oftentimes it's easier and quicker just to simply run past them. But the game definitely gives you plenty of ammo and plenty of health drops too. It's actually really easy 90% of the time. And for the 10% of the time where it's hard, it's really freaking hard. It's just so inconsistent. Most enemies in the game are quite slow and quickly dispatched by a few bullets. And then you get these bitches. They're called banshees. They scream at you and are crazy fast, do a crap ton of damage, and are just ridiculously hard to kill. They're absolutely awful and insanely rage-inducing. The devs also found the most inopportune moments to throw them at you, such as the very end of a chapter. To make matters worse, the checkpoint system is super unforgiving. If at any point you die, back to the beginning of the chapter, doesn't matter. Beat a boss but then die to a banshee? Back to the beginning, doesn't matter. The game is a breeze, a walk in the park, and then you're just hit with a few super frustrating difficulty spikes. It's very, very inconsistent. The last chapter of the game may have been the least fun thing I've ever played. You're basically just put through this gauntlet of super long corridors with a ton of enemies, the very last of which is 4 or 5 banshees in a single corridor that will kill you insanely fast. Back to the beginning, doesn't matter. Did we do it? It took 100 shots. Navigating the hospital starts off simple, but quickly becomes frustrating, seeing as how nearly the entire game looks the same. The map is also borderline useless. For whatever reason, the map includes areas that you'll simply never travel to. It's just so bloated and there's so much extra stuff going on. It's like they did this just to make it extra confusing. It would have been great if they let you keep the map open on the bottom screen during gameplay, but it does not. Woo! There's a handful of boss battles, some of which are pretty neat, and then they start to repeat themselves. Of the 4 or so bosses in the game, 2 of them you have to battle twice at different points in the game. Dude, get your fucking titties out of my face, dude. It's funny, the second encounter with the cleaver boss, you can totally cheese, something I just found out by accident. How did no one test this? It's ridiculous. There is a story worked into the game, though it's definitely not the focus. They throw a neat little twist in there at the end, but it's far, far from original. On the fear factor scale, this game is a 6. It's definitely got some creepy ambience and environments, which is impressive considering we're talking about a DS game here. The enemies, on the other hand, overstay their welcome and simply aren't scary. Annoying might be a better way to put it. Banshees are terrifying, but not because they're scary, but because one minor slip-up and you'll find yourself at the beginning of the chapter. Overall, this game is a 5. It's certainly a technical showcase for the console, but that's about it, and honestly, it feels like a 3-hour tech demo. The game is incredibly one-note, and I found myself frustrated on numerous occasions. It has some redeeming qualities for sure, but by the time the credits rolled, I was ready for it to be over. Now taking it over to the series' totally arbitrary rating system, Dementium The Ward, as some of you may have guessed, will take the bottom spot. If you guys want to check out my full playthrough of Dementium The Ward to experience all of my pain, then definitely check out the Let's Play channel. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Survival Horror Guide. As always, please let me know what you thought about it. Let me know what games you would like to see covered on this series in the future. And it's October, so we're going to be playing plenty of horror games this month, so definitely stay tuned. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Peace.